Okay, so let's look at our author's weblog analyzer project. This will be the project from which we will look at the first elements of arrays, but it will also be the base project for your lab assignment for this week. So let's make sure we get this locked down. As you've seen, a web server records details of each access. We're going to have to make a mocked up version of that. These logs then show us, the ability to say what are the most popular pages. That's where we want to charge people more to advertise. What are the busiest periods? Do we need to scale up and roll up more servers, like during a product launch, or maybe there's just some areas where we can dynamically load balance the number of systems we have. We can see how much data is being delivered. This might not seem like a big deal because most of you are consumers of information over the web, but you probably have experienced either data caps or you have opted to go with an unlimited plan for mobile. The same sorts of things apply to people that are running web servers. The amount of data that you send out across the internet determines how much you need to pay your service provider. And if you go over that cap, then you have to pay penalty fees, and they can get quite exorbitant. And then they can also show us 404s and broken references, so you can go back to your web design team and say, hey, can you check this page? We're getting a lot of churn in the logs about error messages coming in. Now, one of the easiest things we can do is just try to find where the most traffic comes in on a per hour basis. This is straightforward. There are 24 hours in a day, so we don't need to use an array list. We can set up an array to do that. Now, creating an array has a different set of syntax. Because these predate objects, we indicate arrays with symbols inside of our code, and then we have to use these the appropriate syntax to then get information back out of the array. So to create our log analyzer array, inside of our public class log analyzer, we are going to have an array of integer. And that means that we have to first declare it, and then we have to initialize it. When we declare an array, we indicate that an array is being used by putting square brackets after the variable type. So private int would mean one integer, int open square bracket, close square bracket, means that this is now going to be an array of integer. We haven't yet said how much space it's going to take up, but we know that our counts is now holding a group of integers, not just one. Inside of the constructor, we actually tell that array how much space we need to store that information. So our hour counts variable equals a new object, so we still use the new statement, and it is integer, square bracket. We're going to hold 24 integers in that array, close square bracket, semicolon. Okay, when we declare, no value goes in the square brackets. When we initialize, the size goes in the square brackets. And try to lock that down, because that can be an area that is a little bit confusing if you don't think about what is actually happening in each of these statements separately. When we declare an array, we basically get a reference to a block of memory that is large enough and just large enough to hold the specified amount of values inside of it. So here we have our hour counts array starting at position 0 up to position 23, which gives us 24 spots to store information inside. In order to put information into the array, we need to specify which of these spots the value is going to go into. We do that by using the square bracket notation. Square bracket notation indicates which slot we're either taking information from or putting information into. It represents the target of the assignment statement or the retrieval statement. Other than that, they're just like ordinary variables. So if we are going to assign a value, some value is going to go into the hour counts array into the slot that is specified by the variable hour, which would have to be an integer. If we're going to set the value, for example, take the value that is in hour counts in the spot specified by the hour variable and add 1 to it and store the result back into the slot of hour counts specified by the hour variable. Or we could use it in a Boolean. Go to the hour counts array, look at the spot specified by the value inside of the variable hour, and if that slot holds a value that is greater than 0, then do something. So when we're using an array, almost always we are also going to use square brackets to indicate not the entire array, but a particular location inside of that array. So 3 different modes to consider. How do we declare an array? How do we create an array? How do we use an array? In the declaration, the square brackets are empty. It just says this is more than one object or more than one variable. It is a collection of variables. When we create the array, we use the new statement, the name of the data type, and then how many of those items is the most that we can store in there. And then when we use the array, we can use a value from 0 up to 1 minus the size of the array that was declared inside of the square brackets to get at an individual slot. So here we would initialize the variable I to something and say that the hour counts array at position I takes on the value of 0. Here, take the hour counts array at position I, add 1 to the value, store that value back into hour counts sub I. Print out the value of the location of the hour counts array at position I. Ultimately, you want to get used to the idea that whatever is inside of the square brackets, when we're trying to use it, has to end up between the minimum location, which is 0, and the maximum location. And it could be a specific value, but it is often a variable that is going to resolve to some sort of integer value. Okay? Take some time, do some of the array exercises that are assigned for homework, come back and we'll continue looking at some of the older historical ways that arrays can get started, and then we'll go and look at the hour counts array inside of the Web Analyzer project as well.